Hello and welcome to the Geeky Brummie podcast. Joining me today, Mr. Keith Bloomfield.
Hello.
Mr. Lee Price.
Hi.
Mr. Sam David Edwards.
Hello.
And of course, special guest, Mr. Pete Burke.
How
welcome
we doing?
back. It's been a few years.
It's been a little while.
Yes. Right. Coming up today, we'll be talking all about conventions, especially Animecon UK. And we'll be talking about some other events coming up, including ESL 1, Free Comic Book Day, Maker Central, and UK Games Expo. We'll have a quick chat about X-Men 97 after the latest episode. Apparently things have happened. I haven't watched it, so I'm avoiding spoilers. And we were talking about the BAFTA Game Award winners, plus, as always, our One Geek Thing. But we shall join you in a second.
So you might all remember a good few years back, Fox used to run a TV animated show called X-Men, which was hugely popular, ran across 5 seasons and multiple episodes. And Disney have resurrected that franchise now with X-Men 97, which launched a few weeks ago. And as of the recording, we're now up to the 5th episode, which has caused quite a cry of grief amongst the X-Men fans. So Ryan and Pete have stepped out because of spoilers. So if you're not up to date with the X-Men 97 show at the moment, then perhaps you may also want to do that. But Sam, I'm just going to hand to you first. What do you think so far of what they've done with this show?
I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far. It's it feels like a proper continuation of the original one. They've kept the same animation style and the same voice actors, so it is literally takes up where the last one left off. And I feel like they've done a great job of keeping that kind of tone and style. It's been exciting, and yes, this last episode was just incredible. I checked this morning. I believe it's currently 9.8 out of 10 on IMDb for that episode, which is amazing.
I've got to admit that when it first started, I was a little bit taken aback by the stiltedness of the animation, purely because I'm so used now to kind of modern animation being quite so slick and smooth. Yeah. So being taken back to that kind of like old school 90s animation style where it's a little cheaty sometimes and things are not animated to their fullest extent.
Oh, I remember that time well.
Yeah.
Not specifically from the original X-Men cartoon, because even as a kid I hated superheroes, but it is like, there's so many cartoons of that era had that sort of animation style. Yeah. So it is good that they are bringing it back, though.
And it won me over after the first episode. I kind of got into the fact that actually that they're kind of keeping it in keeping with the fact that this is almost literally an immediate continuation of the show from when it stopped in 97. So it's like, oh yeah, this is fair enough. But they've enhanced it enough to kind of go, actually, this is a new show and we are doing some interesting things, particularly as they're adapting various comic stories as we go forward, which is what the previous show did as well. Yeah. And I think it was episode 3, which kind of covered the Inferno storyline, which is, if people don't know, it's when Scott discovers that Jean Grey isn't Jean Grey. In fact, she's actually a clone from Mr. Sinister called Madeline Pryor, and they have a son, and he becomes Cable. Honestly, this is so many spoilers here. But I love the fact that when they did the Inferno thing, they went full-on horror anime style illustrations in that. What did you think of that episode?
I loved it. I think as well, I'm not as familiar with the comics as you are, but the sort of bits and pieces that I'm aware of, and I loved that they carried on using the name Goblin Queen, which just feels so wonderfully kind of incongruous, like it's out of a fantasy film or something. But yeah.
I actually think they're doing it better than the comics did, because I think comics struggled a little bit, particularly when they were written, to deal with the Madeline Pryor storyline, and Scott Summers came off as an absolute jerk, which is kind of his thing a little bit. But I thought in this particular episode they did a much better job with the whole clone, mother of Nathan Summers kind of stuff, which I really quite liked.
Yeah.
And then I think episode 4 introduced the kind of Mojo verse again, which I thought was quite cool, with the hints to video games, which I think, Lee, you should just watch, because basically it's only half the episode. The second half is a story called Life Death, which is kind of the repercussions of Storm losing her powers in episode 2, I think it was.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking, because like I know there was like some X-Men game which notoriously had like a really terrible line that like played when you fought like a boss or something. I can't remember what the line is or which game specifically it was. I think it was like an arcade game from like the early 90s or something, and I think it's just like one of those really bad, like it was made by a Japanese team and it was like obviously just a poorly translated line kind of thing.
Misinterpreted thing. It's quite cool because it is that.
So I was just imagining that that's probably what they did.
I mean, you should love it because it's that 5-person side-scrolling beat 'em up, much like Scott Pilgrim versus the World game and stuff. So it's quite cool. So they've been doing a really good job with this season so far. But then we get to episode 5, which kind of starts off okay. We kind of have Gambit, Rogue, and I can't remember Magneto visiting Genosha, which, if people remember from the comics, particularly from the Grant Morrison run, has a big part of X-Men history. It's the kind of place where mutants got to live as their own society. And so we go through this episode and you think, this is cool. You know, it's all kind of nice. Magneto and Rogue are kind of re-establishing their link. Gambit's getting a little bit jealous of the whole thing.
There's some lovely little snipes between Magneto and Gambit as well. I love the bit where they're in the plane and Magneto just casually reminds Gambit that he's the only one who wouldn't be able to fly if something went wrong with the plane.
if the X-bird exploded, which it has a tendency to do. I think it did it in the first episode of this season.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And then there's a moment halfway through the show where, if you're watching closely, you'll see a distinct shadow appear in the sky as the camera pans down. And if you know anything about this character, he's a big part of the Marvel What If show. Yeah. You kind of go, all right, something is happening. And must admit, I was quite taken aback by exactly what happened, because I didn't think they'd go to this story quite so soon. What did you think of what happened when the tri-headed Sentinel appeared?
Well, I think before the tri-headed Sentinel, there was Cable appears as well. And I think that was the point where I thought, oh God. So he's clearly there for a reason, and this is not going to go well. But yeah, the Sentinel was just like a force of nature. I almost wanted to see a bit more of his design, because you kind of got hints that it was like this kind of big beetle-y kind of thing. And you never really see it properly, but really quite intimidating. And the fact that he's clearly not bothered about any of the very powerful mutants that he's just kind of carving his way through.
I mean, that's straight out of the, I think it's New X-Men 114, 115, around there. It's Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely who did that. And the design of the tri-headed Sentinel is pretty comics accurate as far as I could see. And I was just devastated by the fact they actually went with this whole, we're just going to wipe out the island state of Genosha, and took down Omega level mutants like Magneto. And then the fact that our favourite kind of Cajun also suffers a rather life-threatening injury.
Yes.
It was one was fine, but two, but also as well the fact that we'd lost lots of other mutants. You know, the Morlocks, we meet the Morlocks again, and the fact that there was just no qualm about, we're just wiping out half of the mutant population.
Well, that's the thing. Part of the joy of the first half of that episode was the number of little cameos in the background, and a lot of those characters seem either dead or seriously injured. Yeah. And I think it's going to be interesting watching the next episode and just seeing how much further that destruction went, because there's a bit where Banshee seems to get hit by a laser beam, for example, and it's not clear whether he would have survived that or not. And members of the Hellfire Club, like you say, the Morlocks, some quite young Morlocks as well get.
Leech is there, and which is quite, again, another very emotional moment, because a couple of episodes before we'd had Magneto speaking directly to Leech, saying that he would always protect him and everything would be fine.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of he's basically murdered by a Sentinel. Which is
Yeah,
kind of good.
while hugging Magneto.
So it's really powerful stuff for a kids' TV show.
It's really intense.
And again, it's kind of riffing on the more recent comics as well, because we've had in the kind of Jonathan Hickman Krakoa era, we've had regular Hellfire galas, which is where the mutants gather together and have a party. And in the recent times, in the Fall of X-Men run, we had basically the destruction of Krakoa, and lots of mutants were killed again. So it's kind of riffing on older stories and newer stories, but to devastating effect.
So I've double checked. X-Men the arcade game 1992 featured Magneto. When you faced against him, would yell "Welcome to die."
Nice.
So so I was hoping that at least they would put that in there somewhere.
I don't remember that line, but now you've said that, it feels like a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
They should have used that in that episode particularly. What worries me though is the fact that they've gone, this is nothing compared to what's coming.
Well, that's the thing. We are only halfway through the season, and we're already sort of reeling from the effects of it. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go next, but also slightly dreading it.
Yeah, but I mean, fully commend them for bringing it back and actually doing something really good with a superhero franchise. I think a lot of people recently have been very disappointed with the filmic efforts, particularly those from Sony themselves. So it gives me high hopes, really, that if Marvel are clever and they've got such good people writing animation, which is, in a lot of people's eyes, just throwaway entertainment for children, if they can do this good a thing with these kind of stories in an animated half-hour show, they really need to up their game when it comes to introducing the X-Men to the actual filmic universe. It's like, because if you do worse than this, you really need to seriously take a look at yourselves as script writers and filmmakers.
I mean, the general opinion does seem to be that animated efforts within Marvel stuff tends to be better, because obviously the Spider-Man movies as well are also widely praised, while literally everything else from Sony is not. So,
but it's a turn of fortunes, really, because the older Spider-Man and X-Men cartoons, some of them were really good. X-Men Evolution was pretty cool. Wolverine and the X-Men was pretty cool, and I think that was the post-2000s era when they kind of started to catch up with what DC had been doing, because DC had a really good run of things like Batman animated series, Superman the animated series, Young Justice, and they were doing a really good job with their Warner Brothers animation of doing really nice animated stuff, where the Marvel stuff was a little bit, some good stories, but generally was pretty poorly animated and not great. So I'm quite pleased that Marvel have gone, whatever DC can do, we can do just as well. And I'm looking forward to the rest of this season.
Like you say, one of the criticisms with the films is that it never feels like the heroes are particularly under any threat. Like the stakes are never all that high, because they're going to come out fine at the end, and even if they're not, they'll be resurrected, or it'll turn out to be some other version or from another universe or something. And Marvel have clearly laid down the gauntlet in terms of having some actual stakes in there as well. Which,
well, I'm quite excited to what happens, because obviously Cable will return, and at some point Mr. Sinister is probably going to have to play more of a part in the ongoing story.
Yeah.
But, so if you're interested in watching X-Men 97, it's available now on Disney Plus if you have a subscription. You can also watch all 5 of the previous X-Men series, which is also available on Disney Plus, and I highly recommend that you do catch those episodes as well.
And if you haven't already seen it, sorry for spoiling everything so far. But there's still the second half of the series to enjoy, which we haven't spoiled.
So catch up.
Yeah.
Geek of the Week.
Yes, so I am Chris Brown. I'm the founder of Birmingham Gaymers and a big old geek. So by day, I work in PR and communications for a professional services company. And by night, I run Birmingham Gaymers and play a lot of board games and video games as well. I think I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to being a geek. I'd always been interested. I'd always been a video gamer when I was younger, but it's only perhaps since like late 20s, early 30s, where little bit more disposable income, and I can embrace that a little bit more. I think one of my big gateways was Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop gaming. For anyone that's watching this, they can probably see some of the books behind me. If not, there's quite a collection behind me. So I'm actually we've got like a little den at the bottom of our garden, which is kind of my office, and I'm surrounded by minis, Warhammer, D&D, maps, all sorts of things. This is kind of like our little haven, as well as 3D printing for printing our own figures as well. So yeah, a bit of a late bloomer, but I think D&D was one of the big things that really introduced me to the geekiness, really. Probably it's a toss-up between X-Men and Dungeons and Dragons. I think X-Men is something that I grew up with, obviously the original cartoons and the early films as well. Then I massively got into the comics. I've got quite a collection at home, as well as a few games and things. It's something that kind of just opened my eyes to the comic book world, and that kind of broadened out into all manner of things, really. D&D, Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons, all of that has had a massive impact of bringing friends together as well. So that will always hold a soft spot in my heart, and constraints on my purse strings as well. Tight grip with the spending on that front as well. Toss up between Scarlet Witch and Storm, I think. Both incredibly powerful mutants, some sensational storylines, and it's great to see some of those storylines being explored in the new X-Men 97, so Life Death, which is kind of just concluding this week. Yeah, there's so many fantastic storylines and characters. It's really difficult to pick, but I am going to go with Storm and Scarlet Witch, I think. Yeah, so Birmingham Gamers started just as we were coming out of COVID pandemic and lockdown. It came about, I was chatting to a few friends who were struggling to get people back together for board games. A lot of people had lost their connections and were feeling a little bit uncomfortable and haven't got the confidence about going out and talking to people. So we set up Birmingham Gamers. The idea was initially, it was kind of just going to be like maybe 5 or 6 of us that would just regularly meet up, and then word spread round. We now have over 200 people on our Discord server, and we get around 40 people to each event, so we pack out all of our events. We host 2 events a month. One is at Cherry Red's upstairs. We've got a private room upstairs where it's kind of like a bring your own board game. There's loads of board games that people bring, so you can kind of swap with each other and stuff. It's quite a chilled out. You don't have to play board games, and you certainly don't have to know how to play board games, because there's quite a few of us that will demonstrate and demo and show you how to do things. And then we've expanded that to weekends as well. So in the middle of the month, we meet at the Hideout in the Jewellery Quarter, which is a fantastic board game cafe, and they've got some escape rooms there. Those events are proving particularly popular at the moment, which is great to see. It's great to support local businesses as well. We have loads of regulars, but we get loads of new faces as well. And if you can come one month and not come again for a while, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't need to be a regular thing. But for us, it was all about creating those safe spaces for the LGBTQ plus community and allies to kind of get together and be themselves more than anything, without fear of judgment, whether it's your sexual identity or whether it's how geeky you really are. They're all facets of people's personalities. This one is so easy. Icewind Dale. So Icewind Dale was one of the first video games that I have had for D&D very, very early on. I think I had it on PC years and years and years ago, and then they re-released the remastered version, which I've now got on the Switch. We also did a campaign for it as well in D&D, but it's one of my favorite settings because it's the enemies are amazing. There's new trials and horrors and the elements that people have to battle with in terms of the cold, and it's more about survival as well. Yeah, Icewind Dale is one of my favorite settings. If you haven't played the Frostmaiden game or the re-released video game, I highly recommend that as well. Oh, okay. So I think there's a couple really. One of the big ones is Titanic. It's just never really appealed to me. And when people kind of hear that, I get some shock and like, how have you not seen that? So yeah, Titanic isn't something that I've seen. Probably won't either. It's just not really my cup of tea. So oh, I mean, a lot of snacks. Aldi do a bag of like their gummies. They're called Flick and Mix, and they're really, really good. It's like just under £2. You get a big bag of, in essence, kind of like similar to Haribo sort of thing. I will devour a bag of those, or crisps. I'm a sucker for savoury things as well. So yeah, crisps and nuts. So yeah, a lot of food gets eaten during board game evenings, that's for sure. Oh, so despite me running a board game meetup and having quite a big selection, I'm really rubbish at board games. I really am. People get really surprised. They just think that you are just going to win everything. But I think the one that I could beat you at is a game called Destinies. It's one of my all-time favorite games, board games. It's by a company called Lucky Duck Gaming, and it integrates an app on your phone or your tablet, which might put a lot of people off. But it's fantastic. It's an RPG game set in quite a dark, disturbing world, and you have to explore this map, uncover clues, defeat monsters. But each player is their own character, and they have their own mission and objective to complete, and the app tells the story for you. So from an accessibility point of view, you really don't need to know many rules, which is fantastic because the game literally tells you what to do. The app literally tells you what to do. Maybe that's why I'm good at it, because I don't need to read the rule book. But yeah, Destiny. So I'll be well up for playing that with you guys. Oh, right. So biased, but I am going to say the Hideout in the Jewelry Quarter. I remember going in there for the first time to meet the guys when we were chatting about running events there, and I just loved it. I have a soft spot for the Jewelry Quarter anyway in Birmingham. I used to live there. I used to work there. I've got a lot of friends there. When you kind of go in, it's kind of like dimly lit. There's a lot of woodwork. It's all under the arches in the Jewelry Quarter as well. They've got a fantastic selection of games. It just feels really cool. So yeah, I absolutely love it in there. So would recommend. And you know what? If you don't play board games, me and some friends went and took our Warhammer sets a couple of weeks ago. We grabbed a table and played Warhammer there as well. So yeah, it's a really good spot. Yeah, so we are on Instagram and we are on Facebook, so you can search for Birmingham Gamers. If you want to pop along, we've got a Discord server as well, where we talk about all manner of things, not just board games. We also talk about video games, and there's a lot of crafty people in the group as well. I mean, I crochet quite a lot, but we've got crocheters, knitters, and all manner of craft things as well. So it's not just about the board games. But if you hop onto Discord and search for Birmingham Gamers, we're pretty well at the top, because I think we are the only ones. But yeah, give us a search on socials and we will be there.
Goodbye.
Hello, Pete.
How are we doing?
All right. Been a while.
It has been a while since last time I was in was
5 years ago.
promoting a different convention, promoting my own, but now here to push Animecon UK.
Mm-hmm. So Animecon UK launched back in June 2023. I think we went along, didn't we? We went along.
Yeah, you've got a nice little YouTube video that that our director, shout out to Clive, loved. So yeah, it's we are still a new event. We are still a growing event, and the 2023 was at the NEC, where we will be this June as well. Much smaller event. We've moved from Hall 20 and the one side of the NEC. We're now moving across to Hall 1 and Hall 2. So the growth is very big. In between those two places, we had our London show at the start of the year as well.
That was at Drumsheds in February?
Yeah, at Drumshed, which was a nice, interesting venue. So it was a former IKEA that was kind of gutted, and I think for the most part it was like a big rave and kind of party venue like that. But then we converted it into a convention, and then we kind of had this. It almost looked like a kind of a Mad Max dystopian anime convention, which all those things shouldn't combine, but it did, and it was wonderful. And so the original for Birmingham, moving on to London, and now back into Birmingham for this coming June.
So it's launching on the 15th and 16th of June. As you said, Halls 1.
Halls 1 and 2, yeah.
So much bigger, much more space.
Much more space, much bigger.
Lots more to come.
Lots of room for cosplays and big swords. And
yeah, I think the last time we were there was a guy in a Warhammer 40k costume who was probably one of the biggest costumes I've ever seen. It was about 8 foot tall.
Do you know what?
And about 8 foot wide.
I think that guy came to London as well, and it's just like it's a phenomenal cosplay. Like the dude's done some amazing.
I'm pretty sure I've seen him at every con.
I mean, like fair play to him.
There's
like
usually someone walking around in a massive Warhammer suit. So
it's such commitment to the cause. Like that's just awesome. I love it.
So what have we got coming up for this event this year?
So at the event we've got loads of little activities. So we're gonna have silent disco, which we had in London, which was brilliant. We've got all of our guests. So we've got guests who are voice actors across many of the different anime shows.
I think you've got a bit of a My Hero Academia reunion going on.
Yeah, a bit of a theme with some of it. So some of the guys have worked together on different shows. So we've got Alejandro Saab, Zeno Robinson, Megan Shipman, Jamie Marachi, Natalie Van Sistine, Joey Montana McCoy. So all these guys have been in Pokemon, My Hero Academia, Spy X Family, like
some video games as well. I think Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, which Lee is probably still addicted to. Are you still playing Honkai Star?
I haven't actually played it for a while. There are a lot of games that I'm playing at the moment, so you know. But I recognise the first two names. I do recognise Alejandro Saab and Zeno Robinson. I don't specifically know where. I think Alejandro Saab is basically the guy who, every time I hear him, I'm like, oh, it's Matt Mercer. Oh, wait, no, it's someone else entirely.
Well, I think he's done Dragon Ball Legends, Pokemon Journeys, Horiyama, so some big games there. And Zeno Robinson, as you mentioned.
I think he's in the new Contra.
Interesting.
Can't remember which character he's playing. He's one of the two leads, obviously, but
yeah. And Zeno Robinson, of course, Pokemon and My Hero Academia as well.
Yeah. So, like I said, we've got silent disco. We've got our voice actors, our stars. We've got karaoke. We've got all the cosplay meets. We've got all the panels. Obviously, you've got all the merch. The sellers who will be selling figures, props, posters, everything you can possibly want to use all your hard-earned money for. We've got Lego Minecraft, if I could say it, the VTubers, Japanese folk duo as well, who I will pass over to Ryan because I'm almost certain I will say their names wrong.
I will say their names wrong, but I will try my best, which is Hibiki Ichikawa and Akari Mochizuki, I believe, who are doing a Japanese folk duo.
If he said it wrong, it's on him.
It's on me. And C. Yosakoi London Tempuzu, who are a Japanese dance troupe as well.
Yeah, and there is much more to be added as well.
Yeah, you could have handed them over to me because I probably would know how to say it.
So for next time, Japanese names, this is the direction we're heading in.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's content being added all the time. There's guests being added all the time. There's different merchants being added all the time. And obviously, like the cosplay meetups, there's going to be panels about cosplay. So if there's any budding cosplayers out there who think, okay, I've just got to go buy my stuff. We've got Bex and her team who run the cosplay hospital, and they will physically go through with you how to create, how to kind of bring that out in yourself, to feel confident, to build your props, to build your uniform, to build your outfits, like all that kind of stuff. Like everything is really kind of centered around the community aspect of this. We go to a lot of conventions, naming no names, but it almost feels like it's a very soulless bye. Things like the silent disco, like we've got an after party on the Saturday night as well that you can buy tickets for. Everything is based on how do we keep each other interacting with each other, like how much community can we bring in, how much, whether it be London or Birmingham, is there like yourselves, a local thing that we can bring in and make it bigger than the sum of its parts, but doing it all very organically and very naturally, and having people appreciate that we're in their city, but it's not just give us your money, it's come be part of it. Like it's come and share the love of the medium with us and have a great time while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. And you're asking for people who want to apply to either run a panel, run a meet, maybe do a workshop, maybe a cosplay techniques, etc.
Yeah.
So you're looking for those, or content creators who want to turn up and
absolutely.
Get involved.
So if you're, we spoke about the Warhammer guy. As an example, if you've got cosplays and you're really proud of what you do and you think, oh, do you know what, I'd love to show people my journey, you can apply to run a little panel where you can show the start, the middle, end of how you produced what you produced, your journey, talk to other people that are either on a similar journey with you or they're just starting out and thinking, oh, okay, I'd love to do this in cosplay. How do I go about doing it? All these kind of things, content creators. So if you are an artist, we've got Artist Alley, everything is around people coming to us to share what they're about, what they want to do. And then just like little things as part of that, it's the community as a whole. We arrange meets as well. So we had a League of Legends meet in London, and they took over. And it got to the point where the staff on the venue were like, oh, no, you're not. You can't all come through this area. And we're like, look, there's like 100 people that are all legal, and they were all phenomenal and amazing. We're like, no, they're coming through, because it's just brilliant. It's such a brilliant and rewarding community to be part of.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to see how much cosplay has progressed, especially in the years that we've been running it. I know, Sam, you're a bit of a dedicated cosplayer in the background.
Very amateur, but I enjoy giving it a go, definitely.
But now with 3D printing, access to materials, design works, people putting stuff online, it's so much more of an art than people think.
I genuinely often see some of the costumes and think, I wish I was as good at anything as these folks have been at building these kind of suits, the outfits, the armour, the props and what have you.
Just the LEDs, the smoke.
Oh.
So sometimes it's just the dedication to be in that costume for more than an hour, because some of them looks like hard work.
Shout out to a cosplayer that I met in London, Stevie Moon, if she's listening. She had these heels on that were, and all day she just rocked it, and I was like, that's just amazing. Like if I go to work in trainers for 4 hours, I'm like, my feet are hurting. But she rocked these heels all day and she looked amazing. So like it's just like those guys are phenomenal.
Yeah, the most dedication I've done cosplay exactly once, and the most dedication that involved was carrying around a Morgana plush from Persona 5 for the whole day. Which was mostly just stuffed in a bag anyway, but like so when I do see some of those bigger ones, it is like, how are you doing this?
But of course, it's also about protection and making sure that everybody enjoys their good time. So you put a bit of code of conduct together on the website?
Yeah, I think more in line with how we do very much try to preach that we are community, and that what we would like as part of that is everyone to come with those kind of same values and that same level of respect. So the code of content literally is that cosplay isn't consent. So if someone has an outfit on that is slightly revealing, that doesn't mean you can touch. It doesn't mean you can just take a photo. If you like their outfit and you think they look amazing, approach the person, say, oh, I think your outfit looks amazing. Ask for a photo. If it's a child that's in a great outfit, the times we're in, you ask the parents, you ask the guardians and say, hey guys, can I have a photo with? It's just mutual respect for each other. Yeah. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes, but it's something that we do very much. We put posters up around the venue as well, just to let people know, hey, look, we're all here for the same reason, for the love of the content, for the love of the community. So just respect and look after each other. It's really simple.
Yeah, and tag the creators as well.
Yeah, tag the creators, give them the credit. Because if you're going to take a photo and go, hey, here's my Instagram, like, ask for the person's tag them in it, like, try and get them the exposure that quality and dedication deserves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something we always believe in quite a lot here at Geeky Brummie, and we always make sure we get consent before we do it.
Yeah, no means no. So if a creator says, no, sorry, because for whatever reason, doesn't matter what the reason is, you just say, okay, thank you, have a great day, and on you go, enjoy your time.
Yeah.
It is important because, like you were saying when you mentioned the cosplay hospital, it's part of the experience of going out in cosplay is feeling comfortable in what you're wearing. It's just sort of, it's a character that you identify with, and you want to almost make it part of your persona, and you need to feel comfortable and safe doing that. And
the after party and the cosplay and the hospital and everything we do is all from that position of respect. It's all from that position of we're one community, everyone looks out for everybody looks after everybody, and everyone's accepted, regardless of who, what, where, how. Everyone is part of it and everyone is welcome.
So talk more about the after party then. So it's one of the big event draws, I believe.
Yeah, so you got to get the VIP ticket, kids, to get in. Your normal ticket won't get into the after the show party, but you can buy the extra and that will get you in. And it's music and it's entertainment and it's the community and it'll be cosplayers. It's just really good fun. In London, we had it in a side room from the event, and people were karaoke singing the Pokemon theme tune, and everyone was joining in. And there's this cascade of that final note of Pokemon, like that last bit, and like it's again back to that community thing. Like it's just such a great fun little extra to the show that it just kind of. Yes, you can do the day. Yes, you can do your convention, and then just in the evening, you get to wind down, still in cosplay, still in however many shopping bags you've bought, and you just get to kind of go, like those dudes are singing the Pokemon theme tune, or they're singing the tune to this, and I want to sing along, and just go and do it, and just it's a be free moment.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages as well being at the NEC, it's very easy to get to by public transport.
Yep.
It's got its own train station, pretty much with Birmingham International. Versus there's plenty of hotel rooms nearby if you do want to stop over for the evening, etc.
Yeah, I'm sure that everyone has been to a convention of any description at the NEC. Easy to get to, hotels on site. If there is any questions, our website fully details how to get there. It fully details, like we've mentioned, the code of conduct. It's got the link to the tickets, which we'll post for this on our reels and everything like that as well. So you guys can go and check out anything that we haven't quite covered.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great guide to accessibility of the venue as well. So if you've got some accessibility issues, there's great ways of getting in. The safe spaces there if you have some neurodivergence, etc. I mean, you've got a fantastic crew of volunteers as well who are on site to help.
Yeah, and we are still looking for volunteers. So if anyone is interested and wants to come and be part of the convention, you maybe not a cosplayer, you may be someone that just loves the medium and thinks, you know what, hey, I'd love to just come and help out. So if you go to the website, if you contact us on any of our socials and say, hey, look, I want to register as a volunteer, we'll get you on our little register. Noah and the team and Ella will be in touch, and we'll start doing details and get everyone along and get you in some nice branded merch so you look the part.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned as well about the content creator applications. That's finishing soon, I believe.
Yeah, so the content creator applications via the website, and there's a form at the bottom of the page so you can fill it in. That'll go through to Bex and the team. That closes the 30th of April, and they're going to try and get back in contact with anybody in and around the 7th of May.
Awesome. So, I suppose one more thing before we get onto it. You're doing a mini Forbidden Planet International tour in the run-up as well. Yeah,
we've got a great little partnership going with Forbidden Planet International. So we're going to do a little tour across May. So from the 4th of May through to the 26th, I think the tour kind of finishes. So we're each weekend across multiple stores. So Birmingham, Wolverhampton, Leicester, Nottingham, Stoke. I think there's actually a bit of scope. So we're going to be covering Sheffield and Manchester as well, because obviously Birmingham's nice and easy to reach from those areas. So it could be that people are like, oh, hey, I'd still like to come, and it's an hour and a little bit on the train. So at each of those shops, we're going to be there. So if anyone wants to buy a ticket, we'll have our card reader. There we go. You can buy a ticket. We can we'll be handing out flyers, speak to people if they don't know our convention, don't know what we're about. We'll be appearing in store and just chatting with people. And at each store, we're going to give away 2 free tickets as well. So each store will run a different type of competition, whether it's cosplay, little question, performance, whatever it is. We're going to put something together for each individual store. People can come and win VIP tickets, and that will get them into the show and the after party, the exclusive after party.
Awesome. I mean, when we went down last year, I mean, it was a fantastic day out. Well, we only did the one day out, the 2, unfortunately, but it was really good fun, and we really enjoyed it, didn't we? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And the community atmosphere really struck me as well. And the community as a whole, but also the little kind of sub-communities. It was just lovely kind of dipping your toe into different worlds. That I remember there was a stand about, I think it was people who build and paint kind of Gundam mech suit figures. And they clearly had this huge community. They all knew each other, chatted about it online. And it's just something I've never even thought about before. But,
the Gundam building scene is massive.
It was the intricacies of it, the micro LEDs, all the little kits, and how they'd taken the kits and modified them. And the modding scene was insane with that, and like how they do like.
I mean, if you think it's big here, like when I went to Japan in Akihabara, they have like just entire shops that are just Gundam parts. That's all they sell. They don't sell anything else, but it's just an entire shop that only sells that. And you're just like, okay.
So now they've just had the giant Gundam statue. I believe it's just closed after like running for almost a year. It was only supposed to running for a few days.
I think they change it regularly.
Yeah, that was insane to see that footage online. But I mean, we've all been to conventions at the NEC quite a long time. As you've said, Pete, I think some of it has got a little bit stayed. Some of it is the kind of... It feels like a Scooby-Doo cartoon as you run up and down the aisles. It's Funko Pop seller, old merch, Funko Pop seller, old merch, Funko Pops, video games that are massively overpriced, Funko Pops. And you're trying to get away from that quite a lot. I mean, we've been to conventions at the NEC for, nearly 10, 15 years now. I mean, Lee, do you feel like it's getting a bit stayed with the convention scheme?
I mean, it depends on where you're going. Certain conventions are definitely better than others. I mean... Obviously, I'm going to talk a bit more about it later in the show, but the UK Games Expo is always a good time, for instance. But, like, obviously, yes, there are other sort of bigger ones which you can kind of tell that they're just kind of a bit rote. It's kind of a bit the same thing at times, but... I
think there is room for all of these different aspects, Funko and what have you. I think just some conventions, it's... Oh, you want to come and sell here? Yeah, fine. And it's, like you said, it's just like 10 rows of people selling Funkos amongst the 11 rows of merch, which is fine for that convention. We have a lot of repeat custom. We have a lot of new people. We try and look at what people are selling. So when someone comes along, you can get that Bandai exclusive, whether it be a UK version or a Japan version. There will be a stand selling Funko. There will be someone selling... some of the Squishmallow type like figures, teddies and what have you. There'll be the big posters. There'll be the laminate stickers. Like
but choice.
It's choice. Yeah. It's a load of different things that for whatever your fandom needs are, there should be stands for you.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that people get confused with anime because they think in their heads maybe it's just cartoons. It's a medium. It's an art form.
Yeah.
Same as we always talk about with comic books on here. It's an art form. It's a medium. You can tell many, many different stories and many, many different styles using the form of anime or using comics or using manga or different ways. And it's a great way to get a lot of collaboration going on as well. I mean, I know specifically conventions are great places for people to meet and collaborate, and artists you'll see will pop over to the stand, see their styles, have conversations together, and it's always a great kind of community feel as well.
Well, that's part of it. So if anyone's they're selling merch, or they're a creator and they're in Artist Alley, what have you, as part of their booking, they get to come to the after show party as well. So it's not that it's just someone sat at a table during the day going, well, buy my comic or buy my artwork. You can come and speak to that person in the evening. You can come and say, hey, what was your inspiration? Like, you can, this is where the community thing always comes back. The after party, you can come and, I love your work, dude. And I can come and speak to you and ask why you did it and how you did it and what your inspiration was. And you can kind of touch base with all these people. Like, oh, where did you get those Bandais from Japan? Like, did you bring it in this way? Like, can you give me an email? It just allows people to network, to like love the community they're in, and kind of really kind of build up those friendship groups ultimately.
So sort of on that, like I do like seeing sort of like the little community moments with the artists where they're sort of like communicating with each other. One of the things that stood out to me at like the most recent MCM was like an artist who put who made like a sketch or something, which was basically I survived the Neil Newbon queue because that queue was ludicrously long to go see like the Voice of Asterion for Baldur's Gate 3. And like so one of the artists sat down and was just like, I'm going to sell this thing that's basically just like a sort of I was there, I survived that queue.
The sense of humour across the group is brilliant. Like, and everyone is like so funny, and everyone's got so much kind of banter's the wrong word for it, but everyone can bounce off each other so well. It's such a friendly, welcoming place. It is brilliant.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch the fan meets as well, because you'll get people, as you said, from across the country, from up north, down south. And you see people like these friendships start budding sometimes. It's like, I'm a big League of Legends fan, you're a big League of Legends fan, we're dressed as the same character, let's have a conversation, let's talk about how we did our cosplay techniques.
You'll also just get people kind of like gathering in groups based on properties. So it's like, oh, you're this character, I'm this character, let's all hang out because we're like the group from the anime.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun because you always get a load of Final Fantasy VII cosplayers, so you always get the Aeris and the Clouds, like... come and mingle together, and always fun to see stuff like that. I mean, but the thing as well is you keep these as reasonably priced as well, the ticket wise. I mean, it's not insane prices, especially for a convention.
No. Again, we try to price that. Obviously, we're a business, but also we try to price that we know that given the current financial times everyone's in, that we want you to be there. We can't be a convention if you guys aren't there with us. Like, it doesn't work. So you've got the 2-day VIP pass, which is 50 plus the booking fee with VAT, and that gets you to express entry, VIP lounge. You get a bag, 20% off merch, collectible laminate, and the after show party. That's a lot to remember in one moment. You've got weekend passes, which is just £30, booking fee VAT. Saturday only, which is £20, booking fee VAT, and Sunday, which is £17.50, booking fee VAT. But yeah, so everyone is welcome, regardless of which day, how much or how little you want. If you come and buy tickets and go, do you know what, I wasn't going to stay around for the after show party, but now I want to, you can buy them on the day. It's fine. We're selling our own personalised merch there. You can buy additions to your tickets while you're there. If you're loving what you're doing, why not stay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so we haven't really mentioned the date yet, I suppose, when it's on.
Jake,
that would be a good thing to mention.
15th and 16th of June at the NEC Birmingham.
Yeah.
I think you may have mentioned it at the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've talked about it. But yeah, it's a fantastic convention. We loved going last year. It was great to see this kind of new convention on the scene. As you said, the ones that have been around for quite some time nowadays for most of them. So, and something we worked with Birmingham Anime Film Festival, of course, is how anime as a genre is exploding now at the moment. And it's one of those things where I think we had the first wave. If you think about the Toonami era, I remember being a kid watching like Fox Kids, Cartoon Network, seeing that first run of End of Evangelion, Big O, Gungrave, Outlaw Star, that kind of period. And I think we're in the second phase now where it's just gone crazy and people are really enjoying anime, and it's great to see people like Netflix and all the anime and Crunchyroll and the support coming out.
Yeah, I think everyone's bought in now. It used to be that it was this, it's this thing over here, and now it's so immersed into so many different things. Like I said, all the streamers are now backing stuff. I mean, like even my personal levels of interest. I'm a huge Batman guy, but like.
But Batman Ninja was kind of
like it was amazing. And they also did it in around the same time. They did the Batman stuff where it was, I think it was like 6 or 7 different short stories done by anime artists, and they were all done in such different styles, and it was just stunning. It's beautiful, and it made me change my, like, no, Batman's not meant to look like that. He's meant, but then I loved it in the same way. It was like, oh my god, it's such a fresh take on things, and I think that's where, because the community's grown, because the artwork and the concepts are more widespread now. They're more accessible, like you said, Crunchyroll, Netflix, etc. I think it's a great new wave of fandom, and I think it's really good to be riding that journey with it and seeing all the wonderful stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And time to give away some tickets, I think.
Yeah, so we're going to give away 2 tickets. So you're going to need to listen to what I say next, because it will sound a little bit difficult, but it's not. So we're going to give 2 free tickets away to people chosen at random who can finish this quote, but you've got to finish it by posting on your socials. So if you finish the quote, you can draw it, you can animate it, you can act it out, you can cosplay it, you can just type it in text. Whatever you want to do, you follow us, you tag us, and you finish this quote, and you'll enter into the competition, and the people who are on our socials will pick you at random. Now that that's been explained, and I hope somewhat succinctly so that people understand. So the quote is, and you just need to finish the quote. That's all it is. You don't need to tell me who it was, how it was, when it was. You just need to finish the quote on your socials. So the quote is, if you live, you live. If you lose, you die. If you don't fight, ... What's the quote?
So just to repeat that, if you live, you live. If you lose, you die. If you don't fight, ... Finish the quote.
Finish the quote. So you can post it anywhere on your socials. Like you said, you can act it out, you can animate it, you can just stick person draw it, you can text it. As long as you follow us on whichever platform it is, tag us in whatever post, in however you want to do it, finish the quote, and you'll be entered into the prize draw for 2 VIP tickets, which will get you into the conventional weekend and the after show party.
And what date does that close?
We're going to close that to coincide with Free Comic Book Day, so that will be closed as of the 4th of May.
Cool. All links, etc., social medias will be in the description below or on the post on the Geeky Brummie website. We'll probably be running a few preview articles in the run-up as well to Animecon UK and remind you of that. But yeah, thanks very much for coming, Pete.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you all guys at the event.
Yeah, and we'll be probably talking about a lot more coming up very soon.
Absolutely.
There are some other events coming up in Birmingham and the surrounding area, which we picked a few out, which we think you might be interested in. The first one I'm doing on behalf of Matt, who is busy practicing, I think, in readiness for said event, which is ESL 1, which is Dota 2. And I can never remember what Dota stands for. Defense of the Ancients, or Dawn of the Ancients, or something like that.
I think I did see someone like the other day find a different acronym for it. There was something entirely different, but they realised that, hang on a minute, its acronym is Dota.
I think it's of the Ancients. I can never remember what the first word is.
I think we might be in like a sort of department of the Department of the Agriculture or something.
But anyway, it's one of the massive MOBAs similar to League of Legends, and it's one of the big events, and it's Valve owned, I believe. It is Defense of the Ancients.
Defense of the Ancients,
I got it right.
Well done.
Cool. So it's making its triumphant return to Birmingham this month, actually, at the time of recording. So historically, this was the most successful major in the Dota Pro circuit, known as DPC. It was put on hiatus in 2020 because of certain events that happened around the world in the year 2020, which we all can probably remember if you haven't got any short-term memory loss. But it's back. It's bigger than ever.
I mean, you might have short-term memory loss because of what happened.
It could have been because of that relationship. But yeah, so it's back. It's bigger than ever, and this time it's taking part at Results World Arena, which is just on the NEC next to the NEC grounds. I think it's same owners. It's same as Results World, but off to the side.
Yeah, so where it is, so you got like the South Car Park, and you've got Resorts World, and just across from that, you've got the Resorts World Arena, and it's like sort of as you're going into the NEC proper from the car parks, it's all along that way.
So it's basically the music venue.
Yeah, it used to be known as the NEC Arena. It used to be before, it was the Genting Arena, and before that it was the NEC Arena. It's the big place that you go and see a music concert.
They change the name regularly, but it's just the NEC.
Because in Birmingham, we cannot keep the name of an arena for more than 6 months.
So it's a phenomenal milestone for Birmingham, to be honest. It's the biggest esports event in the country, I think, one of, if not the biggest. A lot of young esports fans will be coming to experience best that Birmingham has to offer. And
they'll be experiencing the NEC.
Well, the best the NEC and Results World have to offer. And it will also, I think they're playing for a prize pool of roughly about £1 million. So it's big money in esports nowadays, kids. Get clicking.
Well, that's Steam money being put to good use.
And that's on from April the 26th through to the 28th. Tickets on the website, and links will be, as usual, in the description. But Keith, something else is happening on May the 4th this year, apart from Star Wars Day. So do you want to tell us what's going on?
So because it happens on the first Saturday of May every year, it does align with Star Wars Day this year. So the 4th of May is Free Comic Book Day 2024, which is basically the comic book shops annual event where participating comic shops around the globe, not just in the UK, give away free comic books to their customers. And this is just, like I said, traditionally held on the first Saturday of May. So what they have is they have a range of comics that are coming from all different publishers to encourage people to try a title so that they can pick it up. So they have a range of gold comics, which are the kind of top tier comics that are a bit more difficult to get, and then they also have their silver comics. But what they also do to make it easier for prospective comic buyers is they have the Free Comic Day banner at the top of each title, and these are color coded. So if you have green, that's an all ages title, so that's suitable for everybody from babies through to 90-year-olds.
I don't think many babies are reading comics.
Well, you never. Yeah,
they can't read yet.
Who knows? It's a medium you can get
pretty
into.
Pictures. It's the way that people get into comics.
It can be read too.
Yeah.
Their blue banner is kind of their teens one, so that's appropriate kind of up to the age of about 13. So quite a few titles there. And then their red banners are kind of their mature readers, so kind of 13 plus titles on that. So there's a massive amount of titles
Let's
available.
hope they don't get those mixed up.
Yeah, colour coded. Green's good, blue's okay, red's no.
Red, do not give to children, basically.
Don't give to children. So depending on your comic shop, you might find that you'll have a certain selection of comics, and the way they give them out might be slightly different. So generally, Worlds Apart, which is our local one, it's a pick. There's a number of comics that you can pick from, up to. Some of the shops will be blind bagged, some will be other. So you might get some titles at one shop and not at another, depending on what they have to order, because the comic shops have to actually buy these in as comics. So although they're giving them away, it's part of their kind of sales thing, so they are actually paying for these comics. So the best thing you can do if you buy a comic or pick up a comic in Free Comic Book, buy a graphic novel or buy some other comics.
So Worlds Apart, our lovely friends in Birmingham, who one of the premium comic book shops, one of the oldest comic book shops in the UK, they always have a fantastic manga offer. I think it's 3 for 2.
Yeah, they're always doing their manga offer, so you could always pick up some of the kind of manga titles. There are a few manga Free Comic Book Day books out this year as well, which are always really good. Some of the other ones, there's Doctor Who, so Ncuti Nagwa's first 15th Doctor is having his Free Comic Book Day, so that's pushing the kind of Titan books. The big kind of Avengers and X-Men books are the Blood Hunt, where it's the Marvel superheroes versus vampires once again. They
got bored of the zombies.
Well, the zombies will be back at some point. There's lots of Disney stuff as well, so young reader stuff. There's Energon Universe one, which is kind of, if people haven't been on board with the Energon Universe, that's the return of Transformers, but through the Image line. So they're doing the tie-in between G.I. Joe and Transformers, doing more kind of stuff like that. There's also a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book, because
40th anniversary?
40th anniversary, IDW are finishing their current series with issue 150, and then it will start again in, I think it's June that it picks up. And also a newish publisher to me, Mad Cave are doing a Gatchaman book, which is promoting their new series, which is also coming out in June. But there's generally a good selection of titles from all
But
publishers.
the real question is, any Star Wars comics?
There's quite a few. There's 3 or 4 Star Wars books this
So I was
year.
going to say, it is a real missed opportunity if they do not put any free.
There's a standard kind of Star Wars book, and then there's also ones for high. They do the various eras now, so they've cottoned on to the idea that there's kind of High Republic and kind of modern Star Wars and all the rest of it. So there's quite a few titles on there. So I think there's 3 Star Wars titles that will be available on the day. So sometimes they're self-contained, sometimes they're kind of preludes to stories that will start in the regular issues going down. But it's always a good opportunity to try a comic you might not have tried before, but always try and buy something else from your local comic shop if you can.
Yeah, when you said about blind bags, I was just like, that sounds terrible. So I know what would happen. I would pick it up hoping to see something interesting, and it's just all superheroes. And I'd just be like, right, trash.
Yeah, hopefully you would get. I mean, there's an Archie horror. Archie comics are doing a horror range as well, which has been really good over the past few years, which is quite cool. So that's in there as well.
Any Godzilla comics?
I don't think there's a Godzilla book this year, although it's his 70th anniversary. I don't think there's a free comic book day. There are anniversary books coming down the line, but I don't think he's got one.
I know he's done a lot of partnerships recently. Good old Godzilla. Was it Power Rangers?
Godzilla versus Power Rangers.
Transformers.
Godzilla with pirates. Yeah.
Godzilla's just showing up everywhere right now.
Yeah, he's
Like he's in Dave the Diver of all things.
Yeah.
I don't know how that even happened.
Well, I think there's another thing. He's partnering up with another video game, mobile game, I think.
Well, I think he's been in Fortnite. Or was it Call of Duty?
It's been Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
Yeah, so there's another one coming soon. But yeah, buy comics, get free comics. But that's May the 4th, which is coming up 4 weeks.
Awesome. Sam, Maker Central. Do you want to tell us what's going on?
So 18th to 19th of May, again at the NEC, is Makers Central. Makers of what, you might ask? Everything.
They're not
Basically.
makers as in the Dune 2 makers, just in case. You're
Everything
expecting
apart from
sandworms to be
Dune.
at the NEC. Yeah.
It is also not the Disney-owned content creator platform that I thought it might have been. Like I thought it was like a sort of like a VidCon type thing initially, and I was like, interesting. But obviously it's not.
Yeah, so it makes of everything apart from those things. Basically, any kind of hobbycraft or artistic kind of creative industry is going to be represented there. So they've got different companies who manufacture the kind of tools and that sort of thing, workshops. So basically, if you're into any kind of crafting or cosplay or anything along those lines, go along and they'll have YouTubers and social media influencers and that sort of thing who you might have been following giving demonstrations.
Yeah, I know two of the big YouTubers, because they were quite big fanfare about it, is the Hacksmiths, he's got one of the biggest YouTube channels. I think he's the guy who made the first ever lightsaber. So I think there's a video about that, and he's like made Iron Man gloves, full suits, Captain America's shield, done lots and lots of interesting stuff, so that's really interesting. And Colin Furze, the crazy British bloke who has just done weird stuff. I think he's currently digging a tunnel from his garden to the front of his house to park his DeLorean, which will rise into his driveway. He's done crazy stuff in the past. I think he made a moped which has got a pizza oven on it, so you can like do pizza delivery and get your pizza made on the way. Tank tracks. I think he made a full-on tie striker for the second sequel, Star Wars sequel. So he built a full-on one-to-one scale model. Man is crazy, and his funny stuff is always fun to watch. So there's some really good YouTubers there. But as you said, Sam, 3D printing, a lot of Raspberry Pi stuff usually going on there about Arduinos, how to do control stuff.
Lots of workshops as well. So if you've been sort of thinking, I quite fancy giving metallurgy a go, you can go along and have a go at making some little metal things, or leather working, or really all sorts. And like I mentioned, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are into cosplay. If you're into it and you fancy sort of taking it in a different direction, maybe with some like honing up your sewing skills or adding some
buy a new
bits and
3D
pieces,
printer
yeah.
or a CNC machine or one of those.
Yeah, there really is, all sorts in there. So, go along. It looks like fun.
Just remind us where and when that is again.
18th to 19th of May at the NEC.
Awesome. And Lee, one of the bigger flagship conventions coming up.
Yes.
Board game fun. I'm sure Sam will be very interested in this one as well, which is...
So, UK Games Expo, which is also at the NEC, is the 31st of May to the 2nd of June. So it's always like that weekend where you're sort of crossing over into June is usually when it's on. Basically just big board game convention, takes place across 3 halls, I think it is. So the halls 1 to 3. But it also spills over into the hotel that's on the NEC site as well, where they do all the open gaming stuff. It is always a really good time. It is basically just you've just got like people showing off their board games, and most of the tables you can go and sit down and actually sit down and play whatever's there. The great thing about board games is being so tactile. You can just have them there, and you can see what they're all about straight out of the gate. And like obviously we were talking about like how community for conventions. This is probably one of the best for community because it's board games. So you have to play them with other people. So even if you're going on your own, you end up kind of, when you want to test stuff out, you end up kind of getting grouped up with people, and that's a good time. And also there's
big TTRPG focus as
yes, this is what I was about to get to. You can also, one of the things they do in the hotel is they will run tabletop RPG campaigns. So very short little one-shots, and you can sign up for them on the website and go along and just participate in those. I've done a couple of those in the past. There was one, I can't remember what the system was, but it was something about like you're all servants in like a haunted house. So it's almost like you're sort of like the staff for the Addams family, effectively. So there's like weird stuff going on in the house, and you're the ones who have to kind of deal with the fallout of it. And there was one whole bit where like me and another player had to try and like remove a body from the house before someone important arrived, and that's it. So it was a very like fun time. They also do a lot of like tournaments for board games and stuff. I took part in a Seven Wonders one in a previous year. So, it's just a really good time. So it's for 3 days, you get to just play a lot of board games.
I always love seeing the people with their giant bags full of like 300 board games that they buy coming back on the train like this.
I mean, this is the thing. You also have like the bring and buy thing. So like if there's some board games you want to get rid of, you can go sell them there. But then while you're there, you can then pick up even more. Because there's usually like stores which just sell tons of them as well, so it's always useful. So, and also there is the Living History Village, which is basically just a whole bunch of Vikings just hang out outside for the entire duration of the convention. So that's always a fun time as well. So
they're there usually. I think they just put a sign up when UK Games Expo is on. No, awesome. So there's some fantastic events coming up. Don't forget, there might be a film festival coming at the end of September, October. More news coming soon.
So, a couple of episodes we talked about the BAFTA Film Awards. And, well, it's not the only thing that BAFTA do. As well as the Film and TV Awards, they also, for the past 20 years, have been doing the BAFTA Game Awards as well. It really has been going for 20 years.
Is it 20 years?
Yeah, they put like a whole montage at the beginning of the ceremony.
Well, why have they not put the G letter into BAFTA then? Because it should be the BAFTGAs now, really.
I don't know, but
BAFTGAs.
That's probably why. But yes, anyway, they. So the ceremony happened this week at the time of recording. I watched the whole thing, and I always love watching the BAFTA Game Awards. It is so much better than Jeff Keighley's game advertisements in December.
So you mean the advertisement awards with occasional bits of game footage? Those ones?
Yeah, so basically, like, the thing about Jeff Keighley's show every year is that it is so exhausting to watch. It's like 90% ads, and another 5% celebrity appearances, and occasionally you might get like
20% Christopher Judge.
you get like or you'd get and like the most recent one had like the whole thing where everyone had about roughly 5 seconds to speak, and that included the time it took them to walk to the stage. BAFTA, by contrast, genuine celebration of games. Same length of show was the exact same length. It was 2 hours and 15 minutes. But it wasn't exhausting. It was genuinely exciting, genuinely like pleasing to watch, because everyone was celebrating the games of the past year. Like everyone got to speak properly, and everyone got to and everyone presenting the awards. They didn't bring out celebrity appearances. It was journalists, voice actors, content creators, people who actually have some association with video games. Actually, and Best Game Award was presented by John Romero, so the co-creator of Doom. So obviously, this is someone important to the games industry. So
I don't know. He created Daytona, so there's a lot of stuff.
But he will make you his bitch. But anyway, so yeah, obviously the awards. Unsurprisingly, Baldur's Gate 3 was the big winner of the night. It got Best Game, but it also won 4 other awards, including Player Choice. I'm not going to bring up the sponsor like they kept doing throughout the show. The
mobile phone network company.
Yes, it is a mobile phone network company, but other mobile phone network companies are available. But also, it won Music and Narrative, and it also won Performer in a Supporting Role for Andrew Wincott as Raphael, who is like the demon guy that pops up
not
so often.
Not Asterion, who everybody thought was in the bag.
No, I mean, he was nominated for Performer in a Leading Role, along with 2 other Baldur's Gate 3 roles, because the narrator and let me double check who the other one was. It was Karlak, her voice actor. So all 3 of those were nominated for Performer in a Lead Role. I may as well bring that one up because it was actually won by one of the 2 Spider-Men that were nominated. So I like that it's 3 Baldur's Gate 3 party members, 2 Spider-Men, and then the guy from Star Wars. It was Najee Jetta, who played Miles Morales in Spider-Man 2, which surprised even him. Because by his own admission, when he accepted the award, he's like, I haven't even written a speech because everyone else is better than me. So I didn't think I was going to win this, so I don't know what to say.
So now you've flown over from America just for it, and it was basically like booking it straight back over.
Yeah, so it was just sort of like, I've got to figure out how to pack this. It's really heavy.
Just carry on the plane.
But I mean, obviously, like one thing that this is, but part of that was kind of back to this sort of celebratory idea, is when you see the reaction shot of him winning, you also see Yuri Lowenthal, who played Peter Parker, and he's like properly hyping up Najee Jetta. Like, even though he lost technically, like he clearly is like happy for his colleague, and that's the sort of thing I loved seeing. Similarly, like when I'm going to butcher his name, but Borislav Slavov from Baldur's Gate 3, he who was the composer, won Best Music. He was on the verge of tears, and that's the sort of thing that, like, you sort of see the people behind this and all this. But so, obviously, other big winners of the night, we also had Alan Wake 2, which won 2 awards for artistic achievement and audio achievement.
I like that was kind of like a bookend. It was quite nice that they picked both of those together, because it was kind of like, I appreciate Remedy games are very artistic.
Yeah.
And I've heard there are scenes in Alan Wake 2 which are very odd artistic choices, but work fine for said game.
Yeah, it's a very... So the great thing about Remedy is that they just kind of do whatever they want. It's whatever weird thing is going on in Sam Lake's head ends up in that game. It doesn't matter what it is. That's just how their games work. And one of the great things that they've been doing with some of their more recent games is combining a lot of CGI stuff with live action. So they'll blend gameplay with live action footage. And the way that they do it is so phenomenal. I've never seen anyone else do it quite this. They built their engine specifically for this purpose. So you just have live action stuff layered on top of the gameplay, or, it'll suddenly you'll walk in and it's in an area and now you're watching a live action thing. Or you've got a whole like experimental movie playing on the cinema inside one area, and it's just it's really good how they just throw all this stuff together. And also Remedy kind of got other representation when they did the In Memoriam segment, which I think may be the first time they've done an In Memoriam segment. But they had Late Goodbye by Poets of the Fall, which was used for, I believe it was used for the end credits of Max Payne 2. And the reason they used that is because of the passing of James McCaffrey, who was the voice of Max Payne. So he passed away in like December. Mm-hmm. So obviously he was like one of the last names that they showed. But it meant that like at both the big award shows, Poets of the Fall effectively got to do a musical performance. Because obviously at the Game Awards they did the Old Gods of Asgard thing.
Right, this fake band's doing incredibly well, aren't they?
Well, Poets of the Fall is the real band, and Old Gods is the fake one. So. But yeah, other sort of big winners. We've got Super Mario Bros. Wonder also won 2. It won multiplayer and family. It is really not surprising that a Nintendo game won family. If it's a Mario game, it's probably going to win best family game. And then Viewfinder was the other sort of only other one to win multiple awards, which was best British game and best new intellectual property, which is the most business name they could have given it. Viewfinder, for those who don't know, is kind of like it's like a small indie game. It's like a puzzle game, and you've got like a Polaroid camera, and you take pictures of the scenery, and then you can use the Polaroid to like place on the scenery, and that becomes the scenery. It's a very interesting concept. I've not actually played it myself, but like I always forget that it was a British game until it won Best British Game. But for example, like one of the things I've seen in the trailer is like you take a picture of like a building, turn it on its side, and now you made a bridge with the photo. So it's very interesting. I don't know how it holds up across the whole game, but it won 2 awards at the BAFTAs. So, but yeah, then we had a bunch of other things. Animation was won correctly by Hi-Fi Rush.
I'm glad I saw it win because I know it was one of your top 3 of last year.
So I mean, just the door scene alone is indicative of how good the animation is in that game, because that's just brilliant physical comedy done entirely through animation. I'm sure Keith appreciates a lot of the animation in that game as well.
Yeah, it's a great game, and I'm glad it's getting the recognition it deserved, because it kind of came out of nowhere when it was released.
Dropped January last year.
Yeah, they literally announced it and released it at the same time during an Xbox showcase.
Yeah, and now it's multi-platform as well, isn't it?
Yes, they released it. They did a PS5 version.
So that's good.
And then we also had debut game was won by Vemba, which is the
the Cooking Mama style.
Yeah, it's like this sort of it's based around an immigrant family. It's like an Indian family moved to Canada, and it's sort of about sort of finding your place within a new area while holding onto your identity through cooking. So, and a lot of the game centers around like a cooking mini game, which is and it's all about like making these sort of traditional Indian dishes and kind of putting like Western twists on them and all this sort of stuff. It's a very interesting setting game. I don't know if I'd personally play it, but I appreciate that stuff like this exists. Game design was won by Dave the Diver, which I always forget is Korean until like I saw the guy accepting the award come down. I was like, oh yeah, this is a Korean-made game.
Isn't it owned by some massive chaebol or something?
Yeah, it's owned by...
It won indie game.
It's classified as an indie game by some places, because I know it was nominated for Best Indie Game at the Game Awards, which caused massive controversy, but it's owned by the people who made MapleStory, I believe. So one of the big Korean MMOs. So it's like... it's not an indie game by any stretch of the imagination, but like it's basically a game about you run like a fish restaurant. So like half the game is you go diving and catch fish and get stuff, and then the other half of it is a cooking mini game and running restaurant management basically. So
and now Godzilla turns up. I don't know. Like Dredge made sense when that did a crossover, because that was another sort of nautical, like working on the seaside kind of game. Wasn't that like Lovecraftian horrors basically? So that makes perfect sense.
But at least it makes sense because it's like, they're both about...
Are you feeding Godzilla? This is what the bit I don't understand. Is like, is Godzilla a patron at the restaurant, or are you trying to capture him for feed the restaurant?
And then Game Beyond Entertainment, which is usually games that sort of touch on sort of interesting subjects, sort of try and say something. Was won by a game called Cheer. which I think is mostly centered around the fact that it was highlighting the culture of New Caledonia, which tends to not get mentioned much in media in general. So that's obviously a pretty good thing. Evolving Game was won by Cyberpunk 2077, which is probably going to cause controversy again.
I think that game's still on its apology tour to a certain extent, isn't it? It's like, look, we put Idris Elba in now. Are you guys happy? It's not just Keanu.
Yeah.
Now we have Idris.
I mean, that did bring one of the best moments of the show, because they decided we're going to let Sweet Anita, who's a streamer with Tourette's, present this award. So she called CDPR a dickhead, which she shows up to these things all the time, and they know what's going to happen, and that's why they do it. And it's why she agrees to it, because she also acknowledges that, like, my tics are actually quite funny.
Make a note of timestamp.
But yeah, then also technical achievement was Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, which does not surprise me considering.
Well, the Switch is what? Nearly 10 years old now?
It would be 7. Yeah.
I thought it was older than that.
No.
Yeah, 7 years old. And it was an old processor at the time, because it was one out the NVIDIA Shield, which is why I'm thinking it's 10 years old, because I think the processor itself is 10 years old. For that game to run on 10-year-old hardware and to look as beautiful as it does not make sense.
Well, it's also, like, when it came out, I saw a lot of other game designers reacting to it with just like, how? So, like, because it's got all the crafting mechanics, and you can basically just build a whole bunch of additional stuff. And, like, a lot of game designers were like, how did they put this together without the whole game just falling apart? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this needs to... like, what kind of wizards do they have working in Kyoto, you know?
I mean, you've got to know the hardware inside and out, don't you, for that to work properly.
But it's a game like that just proves the constant rush to get to the next generation to create what is supposedly the better games isn't as much a thing as it is if you can do something with 7-year-old technology and put together a game that is crafted as well. And like you said, the things I've seen people have made out of those crafting elements, you just go, you know, it seemed unlimited, really.
Yeah, some for the good, some for the bad. I've seen some very disturbing things being made in the trailer. But yeah, it's the whole art versus graphics, which is the race that some customers always seem to stretch.
But yeah, like I said, it was one of those where, because of how BAFTAs are selected, I knew that was probably going to be heavily in consideration for it. Although I did find it funny that Starfield was nominated for it. I'm like, all right.
It deserves a technical achievement award because it's such an old engine that Bethesda refused to move away from, and it's still being used for modern games. It is insane.
But it's definitely a game where they seem to have made a lot of compromises because of that reason. So.
It's insane. It's the same engine, I think, that's in Skyrim, which came out in 2011, and they're still beating that engine.
Honestly think it's the same engine that's for in Morrowind, Oblivion, or something like that.
It's the creation. It's not the creation engine, is it? Is it a creation engine?
It might be.
I think so. It's an old engine. Yeah. To make anything run on that engine.
It was in Skyrim, but I think it's older than that. So. Yeah. But yeah, those were the BAFTA awards.
I think there was one more award for Special Award of the evening.
Yes, the Special Award went to the disability charity Special Effect. So they do a lot of great work in basically helping people with access needs be able to play video games. So they do things like, they have a partnership with a company that makes eye tracking technology, so people can use their eyes to control games. They also were
custom one-handed or adapted controllers.
They were also heavily involved in the production of Xbox's adaptive controller, which is one of the things that I absolutely do praise Microsoft for, because it is just a really cool bit of tech that, it's a fully customizable controller that's very much been designed with access needs in mind. And, Xbox kind of threw a load of money behind it because they were we want as many people to be able to play games as possible. Special Effect were one of the consulting charities on it. So, they've done a lot of great work there. So I think it is very well deserved. So, yeah. And that was the BAFTA Awards. It was a really good, fun show, like I said. Definitely worth watching. It is on the YouTube channel. definitely give it a watch. You've got Phil Wang presenting it, doing a. Because they always get like some random comedian to present it, but it's always like one of the nerdier comedians they get, and it's always great. And you know, it was just a really good show, and it's absolutely a celebration of video games, and it reminded me exactly what I love about the medium. So
that's fantastic. I'm hoping one day they'll put it on TV to the same extent they do the film and TV awards.
Well, I mean, I think the BBC did a little bit of coverage of it, but most of it was like reporters who didn't know a thing about video games going, "Oh, did you know that video games make a lot of money now? Did you know that women play video games now?" I'm just like, is it 1995 again?
You know what they should do? They should get Barry and Nuge from Geek Syndicate to do it on BBC Two or something. That'd be a fantastic way of doing it.
Well, it should be as celebrated as film and music. Really, it's a massive industry, and
it's a bigger entertainment industry than film and TV. To be honest,
and I think the exposure of you know, even if it was just 1 hour highlights on a Sunday afternoon or whatever it is, to expose people to the range of games that are now available, because it's amazing how many people just think of video games as still being Mario and Sonic, and that's it. And to be able to show the diversity of games that are available now, it's
it's like I said, some of the BBC coverage being a bit kind of like, "Oh, did you know that women play video games now?" I'm like, yeah, they've played them for a while. What are you talking about?
they've played them since the beginning.
Yeah.
If you're probably aware of it. Yeah.
And like you get people who do who introduce something about video game music who go, "It's not just bits and boops anymore." I'm just like, CD audio came in the 90s. What are you doing?
I think it's the same problem, and you picked it up when we were just talking about the Oscars episode. This kind of childification of industry, which isn't cinema or TV, and it's like, or music industry. It's kind of, no, they are valid art styles and arts in their own right.
But I think this is why I like that BAFTA do honour it in the way they do, because they do take it seriously. BAFTA themselves definitely do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we should be very proud of BAFTA doing, is that when they're giving awards, it's taken as this is a proper, genuine art form, and we really want to celebrate the best that is on offer.
And like I said, the fact that they do have people from the industry present the awards as well. Like they had the original Lara Croft come out. So, you know, and it's, you know, that's sort of acknowledging the history of the industry as much as anything else. So it's all great. So
yeah, fingers crossed they'll put it on TV next year.
Yeah.
It's time for our usual issue roundup of what's the one geek thing that has been piquing our interest over the last few weeks since we last recorded. I'm going to start with Lee.
Okay. So I'm going to shock everyone. I'm going to talk about a TV show, not a video game.
It's a superhero TV show.
It's not a superhero TV.
It's not going quite that far.
It's
not that shocking.
It is a samurai TV show. It is. So I've been watching Shogun on Disney Plus or wherever you watch it if you're in another country. I've watched the first 4 episodes of it. So this is the adaptation of the novel Shogun from like the 70s.
James Clavell.
Yeah.
Asian Saga, I believe.
Yes. So it's set during. It's like just before the kind of rise of the shogunate in Japan. So it's sort of like the 1600s. So you've got the Portuguese. It's when the Portuguese have sort of come over to Japan and they've forced Christianity onto the population, and it focuses on a British guy whose name escapes me right now. It's
Edward Blackthorne, the pilot.
It's John Blackthorne. Now I think about it. So it's John Blackthorne, British guy who has basically followed the Portuguese to their magical new trading land of the Japans, as they keep calling it, which is very funny. And it's basically just about him trying to sort of like navigate this new society where like he doesn't understand the language, but he does know some Portuguese, which is represented throughout the entire show as English. But this is one of the things I do like about the show, is that they do have all the Japanese actors speaking in Japanese, and then everyone else is speaking English, even though it's supposed to be Portuguese.
Because I know it was an original series in the 70s.
Yes.
Richard Chamberlain played the lead character. Yeah. I remember loving that. It was a great show.
But I think it's probably a little bit more violent compared to the original.
It is very, like, there is one scene in the most recent episode I've watched involving cannons.
Yeah.
So, and they do not hold back showing what the cannons can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good show. It's mostly sort of John Blackthorne sort of siding with one of the lords, played by Hiroyuki Sanada, who is always great in everything. And he's everyone's sort of just kind of playing off everyone else at all times. Like, you've got the Portuguese, you've got the Japanese, and the five lords all kind of working against each other, as well as like John Blackthorne trying to get his own way. And it's just really kind of, it's just kind of really devious, just kind of seeing like everyone trying to like go up against each other and try and get their way. I did like that there was a description of the show that I saw recently where someone said that Shogun teaches us that no matter what language we speak, no matter where we're from and what we believe in, we can all unite against our common enemy, the Portuguese.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading the book and listening to the audiobook quite a few years ago. It's one of I love the James Clavell series. I mean, there's King Rat, there's quite a few other books in the series. Taipan, one of my other favourites, which I'm hoping they're going to do after Shogun, because it's one of my all-time favourite series of books. But yeah, I mean, the casting has been great, maybe apart from Cosmo Jarvis. He's very, very... well, look, to be honest, he's playing it very well. He's playing an Englishman who is overseas.
Yes.
And he basically just shouts louder.
I legitimately love his performance as this just useless British guy, like, navigating a foreign language. It is exactly what you'd expect, especially of a guy of that era, just sort of waltzing in and be like, "Hello, I'm English, and you will do what I say. You do what I..."
You can imagine him ordering
chips, please.
You can imagine him ordering chips in Benidorm in a cafe.
You call this tea?
But Hiroyuki Sanada, I love him so much. He was fantastic in John Wick 4. He's been fantastic in loads of stuff. Can't remember what. He's just been in everything.
He's
forever.
been in everything. So it's his career's fascinating because, like, he kept showing up in like Hollywood stuff as like, we need like a distinguished Japanese man to show up, and then I realised he was the dad in The Ring, the original Ring.
Yep.
Like, I forgot that he was in that, but then you go back to it and you're like, oh yeah, that is him.
But I was going to also call out Anna Sawai as well, who plays Mariko, who is one of the best characters ever in any kind of book. And her duality, it's her trying to deal with her Catholic faith and her interpretation of God versus being introduced to this English person who's a Protestant versus her trying to deal with her Japanese and the regency and the courts.
I mean, that is one thing that I am enjoying about the show as well, is obviously there are plenty of Japanese people who have not taken to Christianity, but like, you know, the Portuguese have provided like the Catholic perspective, and this guy's come in and he's a Protestant, and so there's all this sort of tension between him and the Portuguese, and you've just got people like Hiroyuki Sanada's character who's just sort of sitting there going, "What is this? What is this Christian nonsense?" Like that term is actually used at one point. It's like, I have no time for your Christian nonsense.
It's fantastic, fascinating piece and period of history, and it's fascinating interpretation.
It's also just great that like kind of both sides of the equation are kind of given a chance to shine. It's not like sort of like, oh, look at the weird foreigners. It's like they're presented seriously with their own characters, and like it's also just, which I think is exemplified by the fact that right at the gate they're both calling each other savages, and I just think that was the perfect way of demonstrating this. So I'm enjoying it so far, but like I said, 4 episodes in, but it's really good so far.
Yeah, I was going to say my favourite clip is when he goes, "Oh, you need a bath," and it's like, "But you gave me one yesterday. I don't need
2
one now."
2 baths in a week. I believe it's the
I
exact
don't need one now till May or something. He says.
2 baths in a week. I'm not doing it.
No, but yeah, I think it's Disney Plus. I think it's FX, so whatever streaming service FX is on overseas. Awesome, thank you. Sam, how about yourself?
Well, I'm slightly kicking myself for using Three Body Problem last episode because I've now seen it and it's awesome and I would love to talk about that. But I'm not going to do the same thing 2 episodes in a row. So instead, I'm going to talk about a film that just came out in the cinema yesterday at time of recording, which is Civil War. Not to be confused with Captain America Civil War, much more serious
Not
film
to
than
be
that.
confused with the English Civil War either.
Nope. So it's a new film by Alex Garland, who directed Ex Machina and was a writer for 28 Days Later as well.
Was it Annihilation as well?
Yes, yep.
And Dread.
And Dread. Very good film.
Very, very good filmmaker. And basically the concept is America is in the grips of a civil war. It doesn't really go into what caused the Civil War.
Because we already know.
Well, that's kind of the thing. I'll come back to that in a minute. But basically, California and Texas have kind of formed an alliance.
Two unlikely bed partners.
Yeah.
Well, yes. But obviously both very large states, and they've kind of rebelled against the rest of the United States. For that whole kind of political thing, though, I think I went into it, and a lot of other people have gone into it expecting it to be a big kind of commentary on the state of politics in America at the moment. They haven't really done that. They've kind of sidestepped a lot of the politics behind it. There's kind of nods to some real-life political issues. So the president, who's played by Nick Offerman, which is great casting, but he's sort of very much in the Donald Trump mould. He's
I was just imagining him as Ron Swanson, just went up through the
Totally against his ideals. Yeah. Now ended up as president.
I think he's moustacheless, so it wouldn't have been wrong.
No, but he does sort of open the film by making big claims about how he's winning the war, and then it quickly becomes apparent that he's not. So it's that kind of fake news, don't necessarily believe the person in power kind of message. But really what the film is more interested in is the kind of human level effect of war, how it brings out the best and worst in different people. So it focuses on a group of reporters, and in particular Kirsten Dunst as a photographer, and she's sort of veteran war photographer. And their plan is to go from New York to Washington and try and get a final interview with the president before the Western forces sweep in and basically kill him. But as they're moving through America, you see all these different kind of landscapes. It's very war-torn in the sense of how you would see it on the news with coverage of Ukraine or the Middle East and that sort of thing. And it really, really is effective because we're all so familiar with scenes of New York and Washington in particular from all these other movies, and just seeing them as battle zones, and because the reporters are there and you're sort of seeing it through their eyes, it feels uncomfortably realistic, but it's incredibly well made.
Because we're all used to New York and LA being blown up by aliens or ghosts recently.
but this is people. And again, because they're not that interested in the politics behind it, and because, like you say, California and Texas are kind of polar opposite ends of the political spectrum normally.
Yeah, like that. I heard that about the movie and was just kind of like, that doesn't make any sense. I can see both states rebelling against the wider thing, but for very different reasons.
Yes,
so it doesn't make sense that they'd ally with each other.
But what it does is, as an audience member, you're not sort of thinking, oh, these guys are the good guys and these guys are the bad guys based on your political leanings. And really, it's not about good guys and bad guys, but there are some very bad guys in there as well.
I think Jesse Plemons is in there.
Yes.
Who is always going to be Meth Damon to me. Which is, you want the dirty version of Matt Damon, you get Jesse Plemons.
The fun part about that is he is a particularly horrible character, and he's obviously married to Kirsten Dunst, so I can sort of see them having some awkward family dinners after those scenes were shot.
Okay, now I recognise his face. Yes, you are. You are correct.
He's a very recognisable face.
Yeah. Mostly because it looks like Matt Damon.
Well, yes, but he's always brilliant. I love Jesse Plemons. He's a good reason to watch anything. And as a slight aside, apparently his Black Mirror character is making a return in the next Black Mirror, or that kind of plot line is making a return in the next season of Black Mirror.
That was one of the better episodes,
I won't go into detail about what happens in case people want to watch it, but it's well worth watching, and I saw it in IMAX as well, and it felt like I was stood in the middle of a firefight.
Maybe not 4DX.
Probably not 4DX, no. But definitely recommend IMAX for it.
Awesome, thank you. Keith, how about yourself?
Well, I'm going to cheat ever so slightly because I don't want to talk about something that I've been reading, but something that I'm looking forward to. But I want to flag up to people because I mentioned it in our segment earlier about New Comic Book Day. It's a relatively new studio to me called Mad Cave. They've been putting out some interesting books, and I've seen their books being promoted quite recently. Haven't picked any up, generally because I've not seen them in my local comic store. But I got in touch with my local comic store this week to say, can you put this comic on order for me? Because I don't want to miss it. And in June, Mad Cave are going to be putting out a range of Gatchaman comics, which people in the UK might remember more as Battle of the Planets. So they've had various comic iterations in the past. But this one seems to be going back more towards the original anime stuff. So the Science Ninja Team Gatchaman. So it's what they're doing is one continuity, infinite possibilities. So it all ties back to everything that's happened in the past. It's all been part of this bigger, wider story. Cullen Bunn is the writer on the series, and Chris Batista is the artist. He's not done the main cover, but he's done one of the variant covers. But it just looks really interesting, and I used to love the cartoon show before I even knew what it was associated with, because it was kind of a random amalgamation of a couple of different shows. So when we saw it in the UK with Seven's Arc 7, which was just added in for the UK audience because they thought we all needed a cute robot character.
I was going to say, for people who haven't seen Battle of the Planets or Gatchaman, explain the concept.
Because the problem is I hear Gatchaman and I'm just imagining a superhero who has little capsules come out of him with random
somebody who's given his salary over to
unfortunately,
Bandai Namco.
They are essentially superheroes, but they're bird themed. So you have eagle, owl, pigeon, duck.
Pigeon.
Isn't the one guy pigeony type thing?
Does he just give people random diseases?
Just poos quite a lot.
And then they have lots of gear and stuff, and it's all special tech and all the rest of it. And
lots of capes, if I remember correctly.
Lots of really cool looking capes. The costumes are pretty awesome. I've always wanted action. They've done some Japanese action figures of the characters over the years, which are really nice. And Imagi did propose a CGI animated version of the show a few years back, which there are various trailers and sizzle reels that you can find on YouTube, but it never came to anything in the end. It looked magnificent. So I'm just looking forward to this comic just bringing that world and those characters back into people's memories and realising how good a premise it all is. They're also doing, in the same month, a Flash Gordon comic, which looks quite interesting as well. Obviously, Flash Gordon's had a lot of comic iterations over the past.
Are you going to say they're going for the 20s, 30s era, or are they going to go?
I've not read up on it so far. I think it's going to be it looks like it's going to be a contemporary take on the character, which I think is sensible.
So no Brian Blessed.
No, not that I know of so far. But there will be. There'll probably be a leader
I
of
mean,
the
they can
Hawkmen.
probably get one of the Blue Peter presenters in. I mean, it's kind of mandatory now for him.
What is it? Dalton's got nothing else.
Yeah,
Playing at the moment.
Timothy, yeah, I was going to say. He's good playing a bad guy nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see Dalton doing a good Ming.
Yeah, he could do quite a good Ming. But yeah, so I think just because it's an unusual publisher, that if you are interested in these comics, you're probably going to have to go to your local comic shop and say, can you order me Mad Cave Studios Gatchaman series? They're doing 2 kind of one-shots in the lead up to the release. So one is featuring Ken, who's one of the main heroes, and one is featuring one of the villains. I can't remember the title of that one, but I've asked my comic shop to pick them all up because I'll see how it goes. The art looks kind of cool, kind of very scratchy, kinetic looking, a bit kind of like not quite as rough as Darren Warren Johnson's been doing in the recent Transformers books, but that kind of very dynamic-y, action-heavy looking book. So I think it should be pretty cool. But that's coming out at the end of June, I believe. But if you are interested, you should be able to pick up the Free Comic Book Day edition, which will be kind of like a prelude to the series, so you get a taste of what it's going to be like. But I kind of just wanted to highlight it just purely because it's not one of the big publishers that you would normally get in this country. So I think if you were looking to find it in a comic shop in the UK particularly, you're probably not going to pick it up. But some shops may do it if there's a particular interest in that kind of story, but it's probably not going to be something you'll get, or they won't have a lot of copies, so they'll probably get snapped up pretty quickly. So if you're interested, check out some of the previews online. There's a lot of great variant covers being done for the first issue, which is...
You ordered the full set?
No, I have a real problem with variant covers because we never get the good ones in this country. Because I didn't get my ROM ones that they did for a few Marvel comic books a while back. And if you did, they were really expensive. So it's like... yeah, but check it out from Mad Cave Studios, Gatchaman issue 1 at the end of June.
Awesome, thank you.
What about you?
I was going to go with Invincible, but you haven't watched it, and we need to talk about the final episode.
I've just not watched the final episode yet.
Well, I think we need to have a proper conversation about the final episode at some point, because there's lots of stuff that happens in the final episode, and I think you will appreciate it as a comics fan. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm going to go with Star Wars The Bad Batch instead, which is something else that you need to catch up on.
I'm so bad. I've only done 2 episodes of it so far.
So it's in its final season. There's 3 episodes left at the time of recording, I believe, and then that's it. So if you're unaware, The Bad Batch follows on from the Clone Wars. And it's kind of a bit of a bridging series between the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
So it's kind of filling that gap of what happens at the very creation of the Galactic Empire. So it's all about the stuff that's going on about how clones being treated, what happened at the end of the Clone Wars, basically, and what happens to all these hundreds of thousands of clones they've churned out over the decade to fight the Clone War, and then they've got nothing to do. So what happens to all these people? So it's been some interesting episodes. It's been some very dark episodes across the season. But as we come into the finale, it's getting a little bit darker and darker. We're moving more into like Empire Strikes Back territory of Star Wars rather than the funner side of it. So it's Dave Filoni. So if you're aware of Dave Filoni, he did the Clone Wars. He did The Mandalorian along with Jon Favreau. I think he was involved in the Boba Fett series, Obi-Wan. He's pretty much just Mr. Star Wars nowadays, isn't he?
He's Mr. Star Wars.
But yeah, so then you got D. Bradley Baker, who is doing 99% of the voices, as you can imagine, with a clone army, and Michelle Ang playing the voice of Omega. So we've got a female clone in the series, which is the first time we've had a female clone pop up. It's been really interesting to see the premise of that about, well, why would you create a female clone and what was the purpose? And we're finally getting into that as we come towards these final episodes. But it's been really kind of not rushed, but it feels like there's a lot they've got to pack in these last 4 episodes, and I'm hoping they might get a feature-length episode to finish off with. I'm hoping, I'm not guaranteed, but plagiarist. There's been quite a lot of pop-ups of people who we've seen in previously in the Clone Wars. So Commander Wolf pops up, we get Gregor up here, we get the return of Admiral Rampart from Season 1, if you ever watched Clone Wars Season 1 and the whole situation that happened. So it's really getting towards that kind of crunch point here, and it's the whole, what happens with Omega, what's this resolving storyline? And if you were a fan of the Clone Wars, which I kind of watched and made sure I watched in chronological order because I was too confused with the episodic wibbly wobbly nature about it, but I think it's one of the most interesting periods of Star Wars they could pick, of how do you turn from a republic and a democracy into an empire. It's kind of who has the actual control, and we can actually see Palpatine doesn't really get that involved in the Empire creation. He's happy to sit back and do all this wibbly wobbly, forcey, dark side stuff, and it's kind of a little bit with Andor. It celebrates the banality of the Empire, and you can see these people who are just wanting to take control because they're just carving out their own little fiefdom in the Empire. It's looking into that a little bit more, and it's a little bit about how does the banality and how does just following orders turn people into something that they're not willing to be, and how do you fight against that? So it's kind of really that early genesis of the Republic. We see a lot of Captain Rex. Echo pops back up for a few episodes, so we're seeing that kind of, so what are the clones doing of those who are loyal to the Republic versus those who are more than happy to jump on with the Empire. So there's a lot of message in it, and I think, again, as it's a cartoon, it gets overlooked. And as much as the Clone Wars got overlooked in its final few series, there's something there.
It's got a lot of mature themes hidden amongst its kind of child-friendly storytelling. Because you would have thought a series called The Bad Batch, it would be consistent. It'd be like, any kind of TV show, so that this group would last from beginning to end. Yet the Batch themselves have changed and morphed and had to deal with a lot of things, which I think is really interesting. It's shown the inconsistency of life, that like things change, and they've used Omega as a catalyst for how do you deal with that when people leave or people pass or things change or whatever it is. So it's dealing with a lot of things that I think, particularly in the post-COVID era, themes and things that a lot of younger people might struggle with because of what happened during that time of isolation and whatever it is. So I think it's doing a lot of really interesting stuff that I think adults are missing out on if they're not paying attention to this, because it's a really sharp, mature show that can still do silliness and frivolity when it wants to.
I think it's definitely hit the tonality of the final season of Rebels is where it's heading towards. And if you've not seen that, Rebels is one of the best things that Star Wars has ever put out, and I really recommend it. And it's got such a unique art style because it looks more at the Ralph McQuarrie style original drawings.
Slightly painted, less looking.
So it's a really different art style, but really, really recommend that. And that's where Ahsoka kind of breeds out from, is that kind of era of Rebels. But it's I think it's not getting as much attention as it should be. That's the only reason I really wanted to give it a highlight. And that was it. So,
Shogun.
Civil War.
Upcoming Gatchaman comic.
And Star Wars The Bad Batch. So thank you for joining us on this issue of the Geeky Brummie Show. We hope you've enjoyed it. Sam, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at DragonSam89 or on Instagram at SDEdwards89. And I'm also on the Geeky Brummie website every Thursday doing a film roundup.
Awesome. Keith, where can we find you?
You can probably find me on the interwebs under the nom de plume of Hard Luck Hotel. So if you find that and it's not Count Duckula, it's probably me. And then most of my tweeting goes out on a Wednesday and on a website on the Wednesday as well, when I do my roundup of what I consider to be some of the most interesting looking comics of the week.
Yeah. And Lee, where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Bubble Pet Ferret. You can also find me doing freelance games writing, mostly on Silicon Era. You can find me on Twitter at The Cheap Ferret, and you can find me on the Geeky Brummie website every Friday talking about the latest video game releases.
Awesome, thank you. And you find us all at geekybrummie.com. As I mentioned, games, films, comics, roundups, more and more articles popping up soon. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, though we still don't use that. I need to really start using that. Mastodon. Was it Mastodon? Sabertooth Tiger?
Nobody does Mastodon anymore. Mastodon's gone.
Mastodon's gone.
Hive and Mastodon are
Yeah, so it's Blue Sky, Twitter, which we need to really start using Blue Sky.
Do Threads as well.
Threads, yeah, Threads are on there as well. Instagram,
Should really do
YouTube.
TikTok.
Yeah, so if you're probably watching this, you're probably watching it on YouTube, so hello. If you're not watching it, we're on podcasting services, so iTunes, Spotify, etc., or your favourite podcasting app of choice. And don't forget to say geekybrummie.com. We shall be back again.
Yeah, so if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget, comment, like, subscribe, all of those things.
Oh yeah, I got told I need to give a shout out to one of my work colleagues, Luke. Because he was very disappointed you gave a shout out to one of your students and he didn't get a shout out. So Luke, if you're watching, enjoy.
Hello, Luke. Or should I say, hello there?
But thank you very much for joining us, and we shall see you again soon.
Bye.
Geeky Brummie intro, episode 8.3.
Sorry. Try that again. That's what I was going to do.
We'll do that.
Cool. Okay.
I mean, chewy. It's got stuck to my teeth now. All right, okay, just go for
This
it.
is when Matt always says the parents are fighting when we do it. It's what we.
Fine. We should have stayed over there. I want to have a drink now. No, it's okay.
BAFTA Game Awards. Cool. Outro.
A ghostly clap from the beyond.